Hello there, another week has passed and another week of change. One manager in and one manager out at Middlesbrough as the pressure ramps up. A change of home for one Northern League side, but disappointingly little change at Newcastle United. No fresh takeover news and no appearance at Wembley for yet another season. All of that and more to come tonight. Welcome to Football Matters. From Woodgate Wool to Warnock Wizardry, Middlesbrough parted company with Jonathan last week and replaced him with Neil, with the club deep in relegation trouble. And it was a move that immediately paid dividends. All the reaction to a huge week on Teesside with Borough legend Andy Campbell. It'll be another season without a trophy on Tyneside. Newcastle eased out of the FA Cup by a dominant Manchester City, and with Steve Bruce having his say on the protracted takeover saga, we'll have our own reaction tonight. And soon to be moving day at West Allotment, 25 years away from the community, the Northern League Division 2 club will be heading to the East Palmersville Sports Pavilion next season. We'll be having a chat with their chairman, Jim Wilson. So another packed programme to get our teeth into this week then, and with the return of the FA Cup to our screens this weekend, allow me to introduce our three trophy pundits. The Premier League of pundits, in it for the long haul, does what it says on the tin really, with a few twists and turns along the way. Sunderland legend Darren Williams. All about the Champions League, this fella. Glitz, glamour, a continental flavour as well. And, well, this season at least, late. Former Newcastle United defender Olivier Bernard. And last, but certainly by no means least, the community shield of the three. Dependable, semi-competitive, semi-professional, and once had a huge affinity to McDonald's too. North East football writer Mark Carruthers. Mark, you're right.
Once? What was that about? I told you during the week I'm in training now, mate.
You are? Yes. What are you in training for? Tell us the views of Football Matters.
I'll get this in early. So yes, next year, me and my good friend Mark Rutter, we're off to do the Three Peaks Challenge. So climbing Ben Nevis, Scafell Pike and Mount Snowdon inside 3 days. All to raise money for the West End Food Bank and Parkinson's UK. So we did it, I should say, back in 2013 for Parkinson's UK. Raised over it was £2,100 for them in memory of my granddad Alfie, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's reasonably early in his life and passed away 1992. So going back to do it again next July. It's actually a year this week, so plenty of time to get fit. So the McDonald's jibe, you can ignore that.
I was about to say that's 3 peaks worth of a lot of McDonald's right there for fuel that you're going to need next July.
Yeah, it's a good challenge. I mean, we genuinely had a good laugh last time we did it in 2012, and looking forward to doing it next year. I've already had 2 offers from Northern League clubs to go and train with them. So I don't know if that was just a sign or if it was as a view to getting fit. I don't know. But
you can come and train with my on the 12 at Darren.
Yeah, Ollie, I'll say this before Andy does. They'll all be taller than me, mate.
I wasn't going to say anything. I made a promise at the start of this episode that I wasn't going to have any more digs after the McDonald's jab. So
yeah, just one last plug. If anyone wants to donate, the Virgin Given page is now live on my Twitter. It's my pinned post on Twitter, and I think it's on my Instagram as well. So if anyone wants to donate, it'd be great. We've got £100. Got a £2,000 target, but obviously plenty of time left. So
a full year to go. It sounds blooming painful, mate, but it's obviously for a tremendous cause. You wouldn't catch me doing it, but I'm not envious of you in the slightest. But like you said, tremendous cause to be doing it. So a full year to train. We'll lose some of that lockdown timber off you before then, I would have said.
Not just lockdown timber.
Middle-aged spread, I think they call it, fella.
Yes.
So let's get into things then. A big week as well, not just for Mark announcing the Three Peaks Challenge, but for Ian Robin. Don't know if you see this, lads. Retired in May, persuaded to come out of retirement by FC Groningen in Holland, by them showing him a video of his career interspersed with clips from a Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary. Have you heard this story? They basically pitched it to him.
Yeah, I don't really.
Well, it raised the question, and Mark, you're going to have to stay quiet on this one because you've never been taken on by a club apart from a couple of Northern League clubs to train.
I'm still going to speak.
But for Olly and Darren, when you kind of retired, what would have persuaded you to come out of retirement that quickly?
Well, probably Chris Agarwal had done me, like.
Counterproductive, but okay. Olly?
To be honest, I wanted to continue and play the game. I was forced to retire, so But to come back, I would probably 2 new hips.
We don't ask much for the Football Matters Christmas list 6 months early. 2 new hips and Crater Lager will do very, very nicely for us around Christmas time. That'll be sensational. But Ian Robin back in football for, well, the foreseeable future. I don't know how long term that might be, but for FC Groningen in Holland, a lovely story to kick things off. Before we do get into the actual programme, as ever, the usual announcements. We're on YouTube and Facebook. You can watch us somewhere on socials at Footy Matters TV on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, we are now in podcast form as well on SoundCloud and on iTunes. So let's get into the matters then. Football matters for this week. Our 15th episode of the lockdown, if we're still calling it a lockdown. And we start with the biggest story of the last 7 days. Amazingly, the first time that they're actually headlining one of our programmes. And the story came, of course, on Teesside. A year after being handed the job, Jonathan Woodgate sacked as Middlesbrough manager, immediately replaced by a man that's a relatively familiar face in football, Neil Warnock, with the club hovering just outside the Championship relegation zone on goal difference. That well-known managerial bounce in good evidence on Saturday. Crucial 2-0 win over Stoke. So is this the start of a Riverside revival? Darren, I have to start with you, mate. Before we bring in our guest tonight, you know Jonathan well. We talked about Jonathan on last week's programme. How disappointed do you think he will be at not being given the chance to turn this around? But on the other flip side, was this the right decision from Steve Gibson? Had it gone too far?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, Woody will be obviously, kicking his heels. It was a job that obviously he wanted. Obviously, it was his hometown. He loved it. He wanted to make a real go of it. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. And I think a lot of people question, whether it was too soon for him to step into a managerial job, especially in the Championship, which we all know is a tough division anyway to get out of. And I think, if you're managing at that level, you've got to be on the ball and you've got to be strict and straight down the line. And whether or not Jonathan's been like that, I don't know, because obviously I've not been in the dressing room.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tough one for him to take. And then obviously, it's the old cliche, isn't it? Old manager goes, new manager comes in. They get a result that they've been wanting for since obviously the start back of the season. But in Warnock, obviously comes with it's a no hold barred, isn't it? He says it how it is, and if you don't like it, then see you later. And that's Warnock, and he's been very, very successful. Doing that, and we put him in the old school category. Let's say, for instance, as a manager, and he's straight down the line, and maybe that's what it's needed. I mean, I'm not saying John won't become a manager and won't make a career out of being a manager, because I think he's got a lot of qualities. But maybe it just needed a bit more time. Maybe if he worked under Warnock, maybe that would have helped massively.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Very well known as the Ron Seal manager, like you say there, Daz. It says on exactly what it says on the tin when it comes down to Neil Warnock, and so it proved on Saturday. Ollie, Mark, we'll get your thoughts in a bit, but we'll bring in our first guest tonight, a man well known on Teesside, and another bloke as well who knows Jonathan well, who of course knows Middlesbrough Football Club very, very well. I'm delighted to welcome back in relatively quick succession after his debut on Football Matters, former Borough striker Andy Campbell. Andy, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, mate, thank you.
Top man, excellent. I suppose a lot better after the result on Saturday, but we've got to talk about what happened before then. Before we talk all things Neil Warnock and this potential Riverside revival going on, just assess for us, in your view, what went wrong for Jonathan Woodgate.
Listen, I went to school with Jonathan, so I've known him most of my life. Still speak to him now, and I felt really sorry for the way that it ended, but I think it was the right decision. I think he probably got thrown into the deep end a little bit. He wasn't given that support mechanism, as in working alongside somebody for long enough. He was obviously Tony Pulis's assistant manager for a season, but that's not really been like having somebody ahead of you like a director of football. And I think he probably could have. That probably could have happened, and it would have supported him and pushed him on a little bit further, and had a longer career with Middlesbrough, because it leaves a little bit of a sour taste sometimes. That obviously fans weren't happy with the way that he was running things, and obviously the way that it's ended now, and then the way that it went on Saturday. It looks that it makes his job and the 9 months that he had a little bit of a laugh and a joke. But you know what I mean, I know how hard he worked, and I was disappointed it didn't work out. But the football club's bigger than one individual and one manager, and they had to make that call. And they made it after one game back after lockdown. And let's be honest, I watched the Swansea game and I thought it was absolutely diabolical. It was men against boys. Should have been 5, 6, maybe 7 before half time. And I think he was probably lucky that the fans weren't there, to be honest, and the players were, because if the fans were there at half time, they would have told every single one of them about what they thought. And the decision was made, and obviously Neil came in with his backroom staff and did what Neil Warnock does and wins his first game and sets it all up nicely, really.
Yeah, it certainly does. Have you spoken to Jonathan since last week, or have you got an idea of how he's feeling? Presumably dejected and disappointed.
Yeah, I sent him a message. I've not had a reply. I just think it's something that he'll be upset, embarrassed about, because he obviously wanted it to work, and we all wanted it to work for him and for the football club, because we're all Middlesbrough fans. We love the club and we want it to be successful. But obviously Steve's a businessman. He's made bigger decisions than this in his tenure at the club, and one wanted to do it, but it had to be done. And if we'd have gone another game without winning, or another defeat, I think it would have been, especially what happened at the weekend, Luton winning and Hull City drawing and Barnsley drawing and Charlton winning again, it would have been disastrous for the football club. Yeah,
just mentioning Steve there. I remember right at the start when he appointed Jonathan, he said he was one for now, one for next year, and certainly one for the future as well, which of course may still apply. How difficult a decision do you think this was for Steve, but not on a professional level, because it had maybe become a little bit untenable, that position, but on more of a personal level, because he knew Jonathan well, of course, and it must have been a little bit difficult for him to have to bring the hammer down exactly like that.
Yeah, I think on a personal level, it will probably be one of the hardest calls he's made. I think professionally, you do what's the best for the business and for the football club. But I think personally, it'll have been a hard call, because I think he's been offered another role at the club, which I don't know if he's accepted or declined, or he's leaving it a little bit till the summer to decide. But I think it'll have been a tough call, but the right call in the end, because it's took the pressure off him. And I mean, if he comes back, and I'm sure he will come back, if he comes back stronger, and if that's at this club or another club, and he becomes a successful manager, it wouldn't surprise me, because he's had a tough year, and I don't think the breaks helped him as well. That I mean, if we'd have carried on, he just beat Charlton, so we were going into these games with confidence. So this has obviously played a major part in his downfall, really.
You speak to quite a few of the fans. Did you get the sense that any of the fans were 100% won over by Jonathan in his tenure or not?
No, I'll go back to the first game. We played Luton Town first game of the season. I don't know if you remember it. We drew 3-3. It was one of the best games of football I've ever seen Middlesbrough play. I'll be honest. It was electric. Oh yeah, we attacked like Newcastle used to attack under Keegan, but we defended like them as well. And we were promised this high attacking football. And if it had carried on all season, I'd have taken it, because we'd have won a lot of games, we'd have lost, but it'd have been fun to watch. And it just didn't happen after that. I mean, we sat back, we invited pressure, we gave away silly goals, we didn't create chances, we didn't shoot, we didn't score, and it just become a boring spectacle, really, and something what I'm not used to watching at Middlesbrough Football Club. And games got harder. We ended up in the bottom 3. We had a good November, December, which thankfully we did, because it would have been a disaster if they hadn't. And then it didn't get much better after that. They started to lose games again. They never really got out of the trouble that they're in now. And I mean, look at the Huddersfield. Huddersfield are the same. They've won games, but they've never got themselves out of it. And it's taken a new manager, hopefully, to get enough points which we can get to safety in the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
Hopefully. And we'll come on to Neil Warnock in just a second. One last one on Jonathan, though, and it's a point you've kind of half touched upon already. Was it always going to be a little bit of a bridge too far for him? You talk about the key players leaving. There was relative inexperience brought in from League One to make that jump up to the Championship. Despite those kind of impressive results, I think West Brom away, Preston away spring to mind, certainly. how arduous a task, how much of a losing battle was he fighting, do you think, given the circumstances?
I think, the two gentlemen, Olivia and Darren will say the same, that I think it's so hard to take over at a club when you know some of the players personally.
Yeah.
That 1 minute your teammates and your friends, the next minute you're managing them, telling them what to do. That's difficult at the best of times. And then you've got the recruitment of players who are coming from lower leagues. For me, the players what were brought in just weren't good enough to the standard of the conversations what he's having with the media, saying he wants to play this expansive attacking football. And then, no disrespect, but he's bringing players in from Blackpool. There's no way in the world this can happen. And you've got to be realistic. I think it was always going to be a struggle. And if the club and himself had probably come out and been honest at the start and said, as long as we stay up this season, and it's work in progress. But obviously, you don't want to come out. You don't want to come out negative. But it's a realistic position they were in, and you could see that from the start. The players weren't good enough. The league's getting so strong. The Championship, you're getting Premier League players coming down. You've got the parachute payments coming through. Even the teams who were coming up were stronger than Middlesbrough. So that was standing out like a sore thumb from day one.
Yeah, Ollie, Darren, just to bring you in on that, what were your kind of thoughts on the squad that Jonathan not just inherited but added to and tinkered with?
You want to think about was it given a budget? Was it given the fair ability to compete highest level? When you sell the sole core of the team, what do you expect? They give you the money to go and fetch for experienced player, or are you just allowed to buy youngsters or players who are lower league? And that's where it's my first question. The ability of him being a manager relies, on the chairman funding. Anybody can manage Man City or a big club like that. You just need to be watching online and see the best rated player at the time, and you sign them. When money is object, you find life a lot easier. When you're struggling, money is not there. Then manager really relies on favors and things like that, and network. And unfortunately, as a young manager, he wasn't ready, and that's a simple part.
And hopefully he bounces back. I mean, Andy, you mentioned this role that has been offered to him. Do you think that he will take that? Do you think pride will maybe get in the way slightly?
It's difficult to where he sees his career path, and if what I'm hearing is right, it's within recruitment about bringing players in, and if that's the correct move for him, I don't see, if he's been a manager, go from a manager to being head of recruitment, it's such a different job, different task. So if he's going around the country, going around the world, and bringing players in, that's one thing. But Middlesbrough Football Club aren't a club at the minute who are going to spend millions and millions. So what's the point of having someone head of a recruitment worldwide if you're only going to bring in players from League 2, League 1? Is it just a role to keep him sweet after being given the sack? I don't know. I'm hoping not, and I hope the football club can push on to the level they need, really. Yeah,
and to do that, of course, they bring in Neil Warnock. There's not too many better options when you're a club that's just outside the relegation zone on goal difference than bringing in a manager who's had 4 promotions, 2 survivals, I think, in the Championship as well.
Yeah.
Is there any better Championship manager out there for what Middlesbrough need right now, Andy, than Neil Warnock?
No. He's the best. He's wore the T-shirt. He's been successful. Just look at his last job at Cardiff. He took Cardiff, probably exactly the same position that Middlesbrough were in, saved them quite comfortably, recruited really well, brought in players of a certain mould, which know the Championship inside out, and took them to promotion the following season. I just think, that first and foremost, he's in to keep them up. And the Stoke game was massive. You've got Hull City on Thursday. You've got QPR next Sunday.
Yeah.
By those 2 games, you get 4 points or 6 points, you're safe.
Yeah.
And and then you can really look forward to seeing where you want the football clubs to go. Does he stay? Does he leave? Is it short term? He's not getting any younger, but at the same time, I saw his enthusiasm at the weekend, and it's infectious. It's just he's just brilliant. That he still has a love for for being in and around that football day in, day out, and the match day, he adores it, you know.
Yeah, 71 years old, and I think this is about the 17th time that he said that this is going to be the last club he takes charge of. So, still going on that front. What do you think it is about him specifically? We talked about his enthusiasm for the game and his attention to detail, I suppose. But what do you think it is about Neil that makes him perfectly suited to keeping teams in this league and to getting teams out of this league up to the Premier League?
I think he plays a brand of football which suits the league. I think he's very direct. He plays a lot of set pieces. He works on corners. He defends in numbers. And, there wasn't probably one standout player at the weekend where I thought, hey, do you know what? He's a 9 or a 10 out of 10. It was more that every single player was a 7 or an 8, which got the job done. Defensively, we were strong. I've never seen the two centre forwards work so hard. You know, that if they'd worked that hard against Swansea, then maybe Jonathan wouldn't have got the sack. No. But you know that Britt and Ashley were just phenomenal. Work rate, it didn't stop. Patrick Roberts, same. You know what I mean? These kind of players, the lockdown's done them probably a world of good. They've been able to get in shape, but for whatever reason, didn't work out for the Swansea game, and they've turned it around. But you know what I mean? It's a shame, because could that result have saved his job if he'd still been in it potentially? But you've got to move on now. It's not gonna. You can't turn the clock back. It's new managers come in, and he's getting the best out of this group of players, and that's the most important thing, because they've got 6 cup finals left, and they've got to win.
All three of you, as former players here, I kind of want to ask the $1 million question. Why is it that with a few days between the two games, the Swansea and the Stoke game, you've got a team there who is so lethargic, and they're not willing to put in the work ethic, etc., under one manager, and then another manager comes in, and suddenly they can put that work ethic in that we all know that they could. How damning is that on the players that there is an argument to suggest that they'd stopped playing for Jonathan Woodgate? Or is that purely down to Jonathan and his fault for not motivating them?
It's difficult. It's difficult because, you know, as a manager, it's all about, you know, being believable. So can you translate your passion? Can you translate the game as well as you played it? Yeah. He was a great player. I played with him, so I know what I'm talking about. He was a great player, great brain of the game. But after that, when you become a manager, you need to translate that to the players. Yeah. So it comes down to communication and leadership. Yeah. If you don't combine them two, then you end up talking fairly vague. You end up, players they trust you, but they don't believe in what you're saying because you're saying it in the right way, or the way for them to understand. And you do lose a dressing room fairly quickly. If you block 4 to defend deep and you concede 5 goals, then what do you say after that? You know what I mean? Yeah, get the line high up, and you get the line high up and you concede 2. And you're still, and then you're in between. And when you start, communication getting in between, things get ugly. For me, and I've seen it a lot of times where managers keeps changing ideas and try this, try that, tactically, technically, and swap players around, and it's awkward. It's awkward, and players lose it fairly quickly.
Yeah. I mean, you certainly got something out of them anyway at the weekend. One last one for you, Andy, just before you go. Warnock appointed till the end of the season. Can you see him being appointed much longer term? Obviously, we talk about his age, 71 years old now. It's a big journey up from Cornwall all the time. Yeah. Would you think that Middlesbrough will be after appointing Warnock at the end of this season, or is it very much a case of assessment later?
I think if he saves them on the last day of the season, I'd probably say no. But I think if he wins the next 2 games and there's enough time to plan and put things in place a little bit quicker than anticipated, I think he'll be able to stay, because I think he'll be able to talk to the players who are out of contract. Obviously, they've extended, but they're still out of contract. He'll be able to recruit and be able to put his own spin on things. Obviously, next season's going to be a little bit of a rush at the best of times. So, and Neil's not stupid, by the way. Neil took over this job knowing what he had in the squad. If he thought that club was going to go down, he wouldn't have put his name towards it, because that would have ruined his reputation. If this is going to be his last job, he knew exactly what he's walking into, and I believe anything above staying up next season would be a success. And Neil's good at that. Neil has a reputation in this league that if Middlesbrough kept a similar squad than what they've got now, they probably should be achieving top 10, if not playoffs. You know what I mean? So with a few additions, then I would like to see him stay, and I hope he does, because I think it would probably give enough time to probably recruit the right manager instead of rushing in to bring another rush manager in, because they've just had that and they've wasted the season, and the football club can't afford to waste another season and appoint the wrong person and end up potentially getting relegated next year.
Yeah, well, we can but hope that he carries out exactly what he did at Cardiff. Middlesbrough, that would be absolutely superb news for Middlesbrough fans and fans of North East football as well. But typically humorous as well. I was reading that he said when he was appointed, at least you won't be booed by anybody for the rest of the season, which is typical Neil Warnock humour. But can't see that happening if he does keep them up and he's appointed at the end of the season. Andy, listen, thank you very much for your time.
Cheers, fellas.
Really
thank you.
Appreciate it as ever.
Pleasure.
And, best luck for the rest of the season, and we'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
See you, fella. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's Andy Campbell, of course, former Middlesbrough striker. Darren, we've just heard Andy kind of say, he'd definitely look at Warnock longer term. You agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, like we said, Warnock's been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt, etc. I think the difficulty, I think with the appointment of Woodgate was from a financial point of view as well. It was easy. He was at the club. It was quite a quick transition that would happen. Yeah. The problem is stepping in from being obviously a player there into management, having those guys as teammates. You only need to kind of upset one or two, who then infect the rest of the squad. And for me, that's probably something that's gone on behind the scenes. Yeah. You look at the two games, like Andy said, it's night and day. Do you know what I mean? And one or two infected players is horrible in this squad, and it affects. And all it would have taken is Jonathan just to say something wrong or something off line, and those guys don't agree with it. Then like I say, it just infects the whole squad.
It's the perils of football management, isn't it? I knew I could see just at the corner of my eye you were going to kind of jump in when I was talking about how concerning is it from a player's perspective, or how damning is it for the players to have been seen not really trying against Swansea. Let's be honest, they were lethargic and pretty poor against Swansea. And a few days later, they turn in that performance against Stoke. It's not a great look for the players, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. And, you, as an outsider or, as a fan watching, you can see that. Yeah. And as a player, if you take that field, you've got to take responsibility for your own performance. And if you're not working hard enough on that pitch, you know it personally yourself. And then you can't go a couple of days later and then go and run, however many miles they're doing and put the effort to do, and say that, they were lethargic, a couple of days before that, because, that's impossible. Yeah. Also, players have got to take a lot of responsibility as well.
For sure have. And there's certainly enough quality in this Middlesbrough squad for them to actually go up the league, if they do stay up, hopefully, touch wood, this season, to move up the league next season. You never know if Neil Warnock's in charge with his past experience. So, Mark, just one final one from you on this, on Warnock as well. He's a manager that you've watched for so many years, in charge of so many different clubs. We've talked about what makes him successful, but what do you think is he going to do, not just for the younger players at Middlesbrough, but for the fans of Middlesbrough as well? Because especially at Cardiff, he had that amazing relationship with the fans, didn't he?
He's decisive. He gets across a message easily. It's always a simple message. There's no frills with him. You know what you're getting from him, and I think that goes for players. I can imagine sitting in a dressing room, listening to him talk. You know exactly what you're getting. You know exactly what your job is. And I think from a fan's point of view, you get the same thing. You know exactly what you're getting with the Neil Warnock side. With the previous manager, I remember seeing them as early back as the first day of pre-season, the first pre-season friendly against Gateshead, when it just looked as if it had been overcomplicated a little bit. And I think Warnock, and it probably sounds like I'm putting him down here, he's a basic manager. You know what you're going to get. You know what he's going to do. You know his style of football. Every single player in that squad will know their jobs, and that's from the goalkeeper to the 18th man or whatever it'll be. Yeah. That's what he'll do. He'll get the right messages across. He'll simplify what he wants people to do, and it's just a case of going out and winning the game, no matter how you do it. And I think that's why he is the best man for Middlesbrough at this point in time. The problem with what you were saying there to Darren about next season, if you're going to appoint him next season, it won't be anything longer than a 1-year deal with his age. So you're then looking at what the next step is after that already. So you need some sort of Do you bring in someone younger to work under him for a year? How will that work? They've already tried that with Woodgate and Pulis.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one for Gibson. He either has to just say, right, thanks, and be decisive. Thanks for the job you've done. You've kept us up, but this is where we're going to go now. Or you try and put something in place for the season after next, whenever that starts.
And I suppose all Middlesbrough fans would be very, very thankful for solidity at the end of the day, wouldn't they? Even if it was a case where Warnock maybe stayed for another season, consolidated mid-table, and then they took on a new manager who could possibly move them into the playoffs again, then, it's beneficial for Middlesbrough. But, really good point on that kind of straightforward way of management. It always reminded me of, I was watching the other night's documentary on Brian Clough when he was at Nottingham Forest, and the number of the players who said that he literally didn't have anything to do with game plans or anything. It was simply a case of, you're a defender, you head the ball, give it to the player who's much more talented than you, give it to the player who scores all the goals. It's that simple. And I don't think that's doing anything, that's not dumbing Neil Warnock down, really. I think it's...
This is a thing. Sometimes I think managers think they need to overcomplicate the game. Yeah. Football is the simplest game going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it simple, keep it right, and you'll probably be successful out of it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, we hope it's going to be successful at Middlesbrough anyway. But we'll leave Middlesbrough behind for now. Delighted to actually be able to talk about them for a concerted period of time this week. But a big, big week coming up for them, like we said before. Hull and then QPR, 4 to 6 points out of that. You're potentially looking at safety finally in the Championship. But we wish Neil Warnock and the Middlesbrough lads well for the rest of the season. We're going to jump down a few leagues then. We're going to move into Northern League Division 2 before we come on to talk about Newcastle from the past weekend. Amazing story, this one. Been 25 years since West Allotment played their home games within their community. Over the last few, they've been out at Druid Park, but finally, they are going to be home, announcing a long-term ground share agreement with Forest Hall at the East Palmersville Sports Pavilion. And I'm delighted to be joined right now by the chairman of West Allotment Football Club, Jim Wilson, who's been right at the very, very heart of getting this deal over the line. Jim, connecting to audio. I never quite time that dead right, do I? Never time it dead right. Jim, can you hear us? Can you see us?
Loud and clear, yeah.
Top man, brilliant. That is music to my ears. How are you doing? I suppose very, very well after the news of the last few days breaking.
Yes, very excited and a little bit more relaxed than I was, shall we say, a couple of months ago.
How good does it feel to be back home after a quarter of a century, essentially, of not being in the community?
We've probably been away from our home village for more than that, because even in the mid-60s when we left West Allotment, we went to Backworth Welfare, which is still reasonably close to West Allotment, but we've been nomads for the last 50 or more years.
But it's brilliant to
tremendous to be back and as close as we're likely to be to our home village.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We talk about the fact that it's nearly 50 years, pretty much, that you've been nomads for. How have the fans reacted to this as well, especially the fans that have kind of followed you over that 50-year period?
Well, we haven't always had a very big fan. We're not from really a large catchment area.
Yeah.
We're last, before, we went to Druid when we played the Blue Flames, we actually averaged around about 100 people at our home games. And that was probably as much as, we expected at that time.
So off that basis, let's say that there's 100 fans coming on average for West Allotment. How big a change do you think this move across to the East Palmersville Sports Pavilion is going to do for West Allotment, not just in terms of the numbers coming to see the games, but also for the growth of the club?
Well, we've also got a fairly healthy junior section, and seeing in the future where the junior sections of West Allotment and the Forest Hall may also have some kind of merger.
Right.
It'll unite the whole community, to be honest.
Mm. And, we talk about West Allotment being in Northern League Division 2 right now. I suppose there is always the forward way of thinking, of seeing where you're going to be in 5-10 years. Are you looking that far advanced, or given the current situation, the current climate in the world, are you taking it on a much more short-term basis right now?
Well, we've established a 40-year contract with the people at Palmersville. So I suppose in that avenue we are looking, you know, quite some way ahead. But initially it was just trying to stabilise the club and getting somewhere where, you know, we weren't likely to be moved on in 2 or 3 years' time. So, you know, we feel a lot more relaxed and under the knowledge that we will be there. Well, obviously not myself, but the team will be there for 4 years. So, you know, it's only good for the club in general.
I tell you what, Jim, there's a lot to be said for being a lot more relaxed, for definite, without the worry on your mind. It must be music to your ears without the worry being there.
Absolutely, it's fantastic. You know, over the last few weeks we've had troubles on and off the pitch. We went to Druid, who I must thank, you know, whilst I'm on here, for rescuing the club, because had they not come along at the time and offered us a home ground, we were going under, you know. So we've got a lot to thank them for. But even that was just a temporary basis, whereas this is, you know, it's permanent as well, like you to get.
What else do you think will need to be done at the new ground? Because I was reading before that there was this £100,000 grant there. What more? Will there be many more changes needed at the pavilion, or not?
Well, the grant we've received is a grant which will enable us to bring up the Grade 5, which is Northern League First Division status. That is, you know, floodlights, grandstand, the covered area, hard standing, etc. Everything that goes with that status, you know, that grant enables us to achieve. Yeah.
So what are we talking about in terms of timescales then? Again, I read that you're looking to kind of move in before the start of next season. When do you think that will be confirmed or not?
Well, we're pretty confident that, you know, the ground will be ready by at least the end of August.
Yeah.
And I honestly think the football season, or certainly not the Northern League, I don't see any plans in place just in case, you know, the ground is the development isn't finished. Where we've asked if they can give with the first few fixtures away from home, etc.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a bit of a tentative agreement with the local team, if necessary, ground share. So, you know, we've got most things in place to start next season.
Prepare for all eventualities. In most circumstances, of course, starting next season would just be the usual phrase that we'd use. But given the current COVID-19 economic climate and social climate, how does the team look on the pitch to start next year with a bang? Is there still a lot of work to be done on the pitch, do you think?
As regards the team?
Yeah.
Well, we're fortunately with I mean, I've said this before, that's what we have at West Allotment. Certainly don't pay for us for the financial side of it.
Yeah.
We don't have a huge budget. But we've been fortunate that they have shown a lot of loyalty both to the management setup and to the club. And we've retained most of the team from last season. I think there's probably 2 or 3 who intend to leave, who probably weren't first choice players anyway. So, you know, we look as though we'll be as strong as we were last season.
Good degree of continuity going down there. I must ask you, Jim, you know, like we ask a lot of chairman managers who come onto Football Matters during this time, how difficult has it been during the last few months and everything that's happened with COVID-19, especially, I suppose, with all the talk of the ground move going on in the background as well? Well,
it's been a bit of a godsend, to be honest, because it has given us a little bit more time with this move. We had been talking to Forest Hall about possibly, you know, merging with them, but never expected it to happen as quickly as it has. But with the lockdown and with things, certain things have happened a lot quicker than what we expected. And the fact that the season probably won't start until, you know, September, October, it has given that little bit more time to achieve the move, hopefully for next.
It's amazing that there's actually been a few people, especially I've been speaking to over the last couple of months, which, you know, you'd expect anyone to reply with, it's been a nightmare in the last 2 or 3 months economically, you know, socially, etc. But it actually has benefited a few clubs out there in terms of buying you a little bit more time.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, financially, you know, we're struggling because our main income is from a letter draw, which we do in West Allotment Club. Well, obviously, with the clubs being closed, the letter draw's been knocked on the head. So we haven't had any income at all over the last 3-4 months or whatever, you know. So financially, it's been rather difficult. And as well as we've had to find money to put towards this grant, because the ground doesn't cover everything. So, I mean, we've had 1 or 2 individuals who have, put their hands in their pockets and come up with the bacon, if you like. And so it has had its advantages, although having said that, we felt absolutely gutted that we hadn't achieved what we set out to achieve, i.e. at least gaining promotion, and hopefully as champions, which, at one stage will look nailed on certs. Yeah. But
I think, Jim, you
have to get on with it, and, you have to make the most of it, and that this is life.
Sure. Ollie?
Yeah, definitely. No, we're saying West Allotment this year was the best team I've seen playing in the second. They were powerful. They were very, very agile, strong side, and kind of bully you for a good first half, and then play you off the park. Very, very right the way this year. Now, for me, by far the best one in the league.
I tell you what, Jim, it's very, very rare that Ollie praises any other team bar Newcastle. Very rare that he praises Newcastle. So that is a collector's item.
Praise indeed from Ollie, yes. But I mean, he's right. We averaged about 4 goals a game. We'd scored over 100 goals when the league was suspended. Our points gap at the top had been cut a bit, but we're still 3 points clear with 2-3 games in hand. And the most important part was there was 4 teams going to be promoted, and we were 15 points ahead of the 5th team. So, it was a kick in the teeth, to be honest.
I suppose the message is just a case of rinse and repeat next season, isn't it? Do exactly the same again, perform as well.
Well, absolutely. But I mean, we're obviously not going to catch teams by surprise next season, because they all know what we're about. And teams like Redcar, who have strengthened their squad recently, it's probably going to be harder to repeat what we achieved last season, but let's get on with it.
Like a challenge. Mark?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jim, I mean, obviously, I know you're disappointed in what happened at the end of this season, but there was a danger that some momentum could have been lost because of what's happened. But do you feel that the move to East Palmersville, will that sort of regain a bit of that momentum?
Well, I shouldn't really say this, but we had a little bit of a presentation night on Saturday night where we tried to socially distance one another as much as we could. And honestly, the atmosphere was fantastic. The lads are really up for it and, really wanting to finish the job that they set out to do, and that is to get into Division 1.
Your manager was sending me photos from that night, so I'm fully aware of it, mate.
All right, it's all right, Jim. No one watches this anywhere, mate. It's fine. No one watches it anyway. We won't tell anyone if you don't. We'll keep well away from it. Listen, Jim, thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. And it's fantastic to see West Allotment heading home for the first time in pretty much 50 years, like you mentioned before. Wonderful news in the Northeast. And from all of us here at Football Matters, we hope that, justice is done and next season you can go on a similar sort of run, and hopefully we'll see you in Northern League Division 1.
Great, that's great. I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
All right, Jim. Well, take care of yourself. We'll catch you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. See you later.
Thanks a lot.
That's Jim Wilson, of course, chairman of West Allotment. Fantastic story. Absolutely great to see. Obviously not wonderful that the team was 15 points clear and coasting towards promotion seemingly. But like Jim was saying there, guys, it's added incentive, isn't it, for next year, especially with the move into the new stadium. It'll be tremendous to see West Allotment there. We're going to quickly move on, and we're going to head back up the league, I suppose, but it's not really league talk that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the FA Cup, which returned at the weekend. And amazingly, well, I know we're never really talking about league football or FA Cup football in June, but at this latter stage of the season, shall we say, very, very rare to see Newcastle United anywhere near a cup competition. So to see them in a quarter-final of the FA Cup was excellent from a North East football perspective. To see them play it off their own park against, it has to be said, a magnificent and hungry and revitalised Manchester City team. Well, it was a bit more sobering, shall we say. But the lack of a crowd seemingly hampered Steve Bruce's side. They were outclassed, shall we say, outfought by an excellent City team. 2-0 on the day, of course. Pep Guardiola's side through to face Arsenal in the semi-finals, leaving Newcastle and wonder what might have been. Ollie, was that result, or how much of that result was down to what I saw described as a passive approach in that first half?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. You know, when you look at the first 20 minutes, it's almost embarrassing at home to be you know on your goal line. You know, you have almost 11 players in the box trying to defend. It was a defensive, you know, five at the back, plus the two wingers playing fullback. You know, it was terrible. It was terrible to watch. If you do want to play that way, then there's no point to put Sam Maxima or Almiron as fullback. You know, yes, you want to play forward, but as soon as the centre back get the ball, they launch it to Andy Carroll, and he's on his own. The nearest player is 50, 60 yards. So it was awkward. I think tactically, it was wrong from the manager to go like that. When you look at the last couple of games that he played since the comeback, they've done really well on the front foot. They got at people, and I thought it was going to keep up the momentum going. Just the fact that, you know, we didn't expect Newcastle to win 5-0. We knew it was going to be a tough game, and you know, you could have materialized on you know, them not having centre backs, for example. You know, they played with two centre backs against us, but you know, the fact that at the back they are weak, you could have capitalized on that and play forward. As soon as they went back to a 4-4-2, 4-4-3-3, you know, it was a different game. Yeah. You know, we felt like the game started where it was already an hour gone. So
just to play devil's advocate, though, and this isn't to say agree or disagree, it's not my job to, but when you're playing a side like Manchester City, who can carve open the very best defences in Europe, is there almost a need to try and keep it tight for the opening first half? Or is it simply a case of, listen, we know that they've got a soft centre at the back, we need to go after that? But can you understand where Steve Bruce was coming from in trying to keep it relatively tight?
I think it's been overthought. I think the manager's overthought his approach. Personally, if you look at that Man City side, so you take someone like David Silva, who loves playing in that number 10, he loves creating space between the lines, as I say. Newcastle did nothing to try and nullify him. So you had De Bruyne sitting deeper, you had Silva in the 10, kind of playing just behind the front man. Yet Newcastle had three centre-backs sat to their own box. Someone's going to go out and take... Newcastle weren't brave enough. That's the problem. They weren't brave enough to go and press Man City from the start. Now, for me, that's because it's been overthought. That's the way I would look at it.
Does that make it any more galling, the fact that they did come out, like you said rightly, Ollie, they came out second half and suddenly, change of formation, they pushed, I think it was Sharon to midfield, and all of a sudden, Newcastle started playing and creating opportunities.
Then you have a game. And then you have a game. Just the tactical change make the game fair. For the two teams, and you would think, well, if you had started just not being scared and you know, trying to use the momentum. That's all I thought. I thought it was really you know, I know Steve Bruce and I know he loves the playing free at the back, don't get me wrong. But it's been working well on the four. The first, you know, glimpse he's got maybe to play with the free, he does it. And that's for me, it's been scared.
Would we have been having this debate, or would the fans have been as angry at the approach if Fabian Schär hadn't given away that penalty or not?
It was a silly penalty. It was needless. And I think whatever happened, Manchester City were going to win that game. I think they are just on the side. But that can't take anything away from the fact that Newcastle should have just, like I say, been a bit braver and had a go at them and really gone at them. It was disappointing. I think one of the things that upset me the most was the fact that when they did have possession and when they did get on the ball in the first half, the ball retention was so poor. And I know there's always this thing of, you know, Man City press high and the hunting packs and all that, but Newcastle, they looked a little bit scared and sort of rabbit in the headlights when they were being pressed, and there weren't options, there was little movement. And I think we're starting to see, and I don't know what Ollie and Darren think, a little bit of an over-reliance on Alan Saint-Maximin. He's not doing it, then there's people have got to take responsibility, and that's not happening, because it was a case of we'll give him the ball, and then I get the impression he thinks he has to do everything. Because no one else is doing it for him. So the likes of Almiron have got to start fronting up and start getting in the game more.
I think Mark touched on it earlier, and it's been overthought. The process of you play Man City. Let's be honest. If you want to put 6-7 at the back, they're going to carve you open at some point.
Yeah.
If you want to sit back and allow pressure and allow people to play up against you, especially teams of that caliber, then you're all wrong. It's your own wrongdoing, really. Yeah. Basically, they played with fear. They go to the game. They played with fear. They sat back. They got punished, and then they came out second half at a totally different mindset and thinking, well, the game's lost now. So we'll go and play now. Yeah. You can approach games like this with fear. Why not approach the game and think, sod this? Do you know what I mean? It's a one-off game. Let's go for it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Nobody expects you to win anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? Let's be honest. How many games have you gone into as a player and nobody expects you to win? But because you go on and play with fear and you think, well, let's just have a right go at them. Sometimes the unexplained happens and you overturn, the result and you end up winning the game. You just don't know. But I think fans would appreciate it more if you had a right go at Man City. Yeah. Back and just.
Do you think that, and this goes out to all of you actually, and this isn't to make excuses for the Newcastle side in any way, shape or form, but do you think that fear was accentuated by the fact that there was no crowd there? We haven't talked about the lack of a crowd so far for Newcastle because, they've performed very, very well against Sheffield United, a bit not as good against Aston Villa. But with a crowd in St James's against that Manchester City side, how much would that have helped Newcastle, do you think?
Turn that round. And say, if you imagine that Newcastle performance in the first 25 minutes where they had, was it 16 passes? 16?
Yeah, it was 15 passes to 185 or something.
So turn that round and have 52,000 people watching that.
Yeah.
Man City creating 7, 8, 9, 10 good chances.
Yeah.
It would be frustration all over the place. And, Newcastle fans get behind the side. They are a fantastically passionate set of fans.
Yeah.
But even the most passionate fan would have been frustrated by watching that. There's always this comparison when Benitez did it. There's always that comparison when he did it against Manchester City. But the problem with that Benitez side, or not the problem with the current side is they don't have a Rondon holding the ball up. They didn't have a Perez zipping in and around the front man. Yeah. As I said earlier, when it went up to Carroll, he had nothing. And I actually thought Andy Carroll did all right in the circumstances.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Andy Carroll actually, and he left one in a couple of times on our miracle at Port. I think he ended up getting booked for one for about his third or fourth offence, which he wasn't too happy about. But was that the kind of game, even though he wasn't heavily involved because of the lack of service and the lack of support for him, was that the kind of game that justifies him being given an extra year on his contract? Do you think, or not?
It's isolation. He's got put up front. And then, do what you can, delay as much as you can. But the fact is, there was too much of a gap between the midfielder and the centre forwards. So even if when you put it down, he's playing a bit against three centre-back, fairly decent centre-back. So you touch it down, and then what do? You send it back. And you can't send it back because then, he's not a runner. So he's not going to send it back and spin and go over the top. So tactically, I think it was, yes, it was the right choice compared to Darlington, but you cannot play tactically like that, especially when you've got a target man that is that slow, unfortunately.
Just talking off strikers, though, how big? I mean, the chance for Dwight Gale, we can't not talk about that for a bloke who was clinical when he came on against Aston Villa. To miss that and then seconds later City go and get the second, there's your turning point, isn't it? Regardless of how Newcastle had played beforehand.
I think even if Dwight Gale scored, Man City just up that game again and still would have won the game. But, you never know. We can't say that for sure.
Yeah.
Give Newcastle a boost, they may well have gone on to win it. I felt a bit for Dwight Gale. Like 9 times out of 10 he scores that.
Yeah.
But it also showed again what Ollie said earlier about the fragility of Man City at the back. How easy Newcastle got him behind them. If again, going back to the bravery thing, if they had been a bit braver, there could have been more chances like that. It was frustrating that he didn't take the chance, but it was also frustrating how easily Man City got out and created that second goal, as wonderful a goal as it was.
And I think if you play them well up there as well, man, I think it's important that you've got to be brave and get out. But you can't, like Ollie said, you can't sit deep. You know what I mean? You could, you'd need David Blaine up there and magic the ball, wouldn't you? Really, you can't expect a centre forward, a lone centre forward, to to allow his team to get out and get up to support him. You know, I'm not being funny. You just can't. The best in the world wouldn't do that. Do you know what I mean? So if you're going to play with a lone striker, which I'm not a big fan of, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of a lone striker unless you've got the support that's going to be rapid and get up with him. Then I'm not a big fan of a lone striker at all.
That's about the Benitez side though, where they had Perez in behind Rondon.
Yeah,
it wasn't a player playing in behind Rondon, behind Carroll. It was just him.
And then a massive gap where the midfield was meant to be. Yeah. Just on one specific player, we've mentioned him already in terms of giving away the penalty. Fabian Schär, arguably Newcastle's player of the season last year. A few good performances this season as well. I noticed on social media the fans were starting to get on his back a little bit. Is that justifiable or not?
It was a stupid mistake to make. I don't even think it was a mistake. I think he wanted to play clever.
Yeah,
a lot in that gesture, and that's the problem when you do defend, you lose concentration. All of a sudden, the man is, you're on the wrong side, and you've got one thing to do. You do the silly thing, and that's the problem is when you defend it too much.
Yeah, and
that's what I hate about the game, because we were into we had a nice system, we had a nice momentum, and we just left it. We always done well against Man City defending, and I agree. We defend, and then all of a sudden we score one goal. Everybody's wondering how we did it, but we did it. But this one was a different one. You're not carrying by the fans. You're not. There's a very, very, very silence in the crowd, even though there's the background music. It's horrible sound.
Yeah.
I think they've done it all wrong, especially for the first half.
You just on that kind of style of playing to kind of wrap things up on that front. Let's say takeover does go through, and there was already a lot of question marks over Steve's future as Newcastle United manager. Is it that sort of display and those sort of tactics that will probably have been seen by certain people who are involved with the takeover? Is it that sort of display that makes them think, no, that's not what we want to see from Newcastle United going forward?
It's got nothing to do. It's got nothing to do with the if you have more money, you buy better players. So it's got, Steve Bruce done what he's doing with the players he's got. And at times, you've got to play the system that you've got to play. With better players, half of the team wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
That's the.
Wouldn't you say though that Ollie, that Newcastle have we've seen Newcastle since the lockdown produce some quite effervescent displays. Steve has the players there to be able to play a more attacking system, doesn't he?
There's good players. Don't get me wrong. There's good players. But if you want to be in the top 10, you need to buy your class players.
Yeah.
Now that's the difference. When you go Man City, even on the bench, when you go, Silva's going out, and then you've got that little Foden. My God, even better. The same style, you get in the twin.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Yeah.
For me.
Interesting, just to kind of sum up on Newcastle, a couple of final points. Looking at the season as a whole, 39 points, 7 games remaining, FA Cup quarter-final. He's not done a bad job, has he, Steve? Coming in and following Rafa Benitez.
Decent.
I know we talk about the, displaying the tactics against Manchester City, but overall, that's not bad, is it?
He's done all right. I think, the majority of fans would have taken staying up this season. I think it would be fair to say he wasn't exactly, his appointment wasn't met with an enthusiastic response because of who he replaced.
Yeah.
But he's kept them in the Premier League. They are mid-table at the moment. The challenge now for Steve Bruce is to make sure this season doesn't just fizzle out. Yes, there's 7 games left. Can they go and win 4 or 5 of them? Can they win 3 of them? And just get a bit of momentum going into summer, and then hopefully whenever this takeover is, whatever decision happens, I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a moment, but it's gone beyond a bit of a joke now. And Newcastle, at the moment, it feels like a shell of a club. It feels like a club that is just floating along without direction, purely because we're all waiting around for this decision. So, I know we're talking about it, and it's gone on for 13 weeks or whatever it is now, or 14 weeks, but it's become a farce. I do have sympathy with the Premier League because it's not an easy decision. You know, there are a lot of factors involved, but Newcastle fans deserve some clarity on this now. And so
that's what Steve called for, wasn't it? After the game, I mean, it's the first time I've ever heard him really openly talk about the takeover, and he said that, you know, we need a bit of clarity ultimately, and he's speaking what everyone's thinking, isn't he, right now, Steve? And a lot of people are saying it this week, but they said that about last week and the week before that and the week before that, and it goes on and on. But Steve's effectively voicing all Newcastle fans' opinions out there, isn't he, Ollie?
No, it is. It is. In the end of the day, you know, at this point, we don't understand why the delay.
No.
You know, it's nice, you know, the suspense for a week or 2 or 3 weeks or months, you know, that get people talking about it. But at one point, you know, a month ago, you should have done it. You should have been done. You should have been assessed, you know, and finished with it. Yeah. Because there's another season to prepare. And they've done well this season. But, you know, the extra couple of months that we could have had could have been vital to next season.
Yeah. Steve's a good manager at the end of the day. You know, he managed for years and years and years. He's a good manager. He's done well this year with what he's had and obviously the position he's in. Obviously, not a great thing having to end the season and then obviously restart the season again. For me, you know, I think yesterday, you know, that's just my personal opinion. I would have probably gone for it, regardless of you know, of what you think about you've got me as a person. I would think, nobody expects us to win this, but let's make a right game of it and let's go for it. For now, I think he's looking at the games remaining for the season. He'll want to finish as strong as possible. Yeah, strong as possible. Yeah, he wants clarity on what's happening with the takeover, if for his own, you know, peace of mind, really, more than anything. Yeah. And not only that, it's still hanging over the club, and it's still a bit of a cloud over the club. Yeah. I mean, and it's just getting delayed and delayed and delayed. You know, and it's not right. And, you know, everybody wants to know. And I mean, personally, I think it's just getting delayed because I think that maybe he's buying Sunderland. But
for about the minute or so you were talking there for, Darren, I was just waiting for a jibe to come in about Sunderland.
I've always got to throw something in there.
It was time to perfection, mate. Time to perfection, right at the end. But Newcastle obviously have, you know, a couple of winnable fixtures coming up in the next 7 days. We might be sitting here on next Monday and talking about the fact that the takeover's been given the green light. We might be looking at a win against Bournemouth and a win against West Ham. Who knows? Things are very, very changeable very, very quickly in the world of football. But like I think all three of you have said, it just seems to be meandering a little bit at the moment. And yeah, clarity would be much appreciated, I'm sure. But that's Newcastle United. Sorry, Ollie, go on.
It might happen. I don't know.
It might what, sorry?
Happen tomorrow. Mate, don't laugh. Mate.
No, I was going to set you up for it, mate, but...
tomorrow's Tuesday, so...
I'm really open from a Football Matters perspective. I don't care what Tuesday, but it happens on a Tuesday. Would be absolutely wonderful, just so we can troll through the archives and say, Ollie didn't actually say tomorrow, he said a Tuesday. So he was right about that. But I think Newcastle fans will take any day that takeover going through right about now. Anyway, let's leave Newcastle United.
I know.
It's gone way past the point of caring, hasn't it? Let's leave Newcastle behind then. Obviously, two winnable fixtures coming up against Bournemouth and West Ham. We'll be talking more about them next week. And let's finish with any other business. Mark, South Shields, in the news again, but for different off-field issues. I don't think that's the right word, really, is it? A real issue for them, I suppose, but not their doing.
Depends which one you mean.
We'll go with the LBC one first, the confusing one.
So, a caller ringing the LBC radio station last week, claiming to be coach of the club. He wasn't, I should quickly say that. Being very much against the Black Lives Matter movement, discussing the banner, which I'll not even mention what was on the banner last Monday in the Burnley game against Man City. Yeah. Said that he'd had conversations with Graham Fenton, which was wrong and strongly refuted by South Shields. South Shields rightly putting out a statement straight away, denying all knowledge of whoever this guy was and the involvement at the club. And Graham Fenton, very supportive of Black Lives Matter, as he said in the statement. So it's unnecessary. I think it's indicative of the environment that we're in at the moment, where people will take advantage of anything they can, try and push their message, if you want to call it that. What we should say, LBC have issued a full apology to South Shields, but I don't think that should, this is a personal opinion, that shouldn't let them off the hook for the fact they didn't do any background checks on this guy. They didn't contact the club, to check if he was a representative. They just took his opinion as an official voice of South Shields, and that's wrong.
I normally come across very, very impartial, because it's my job to come across impartial on this programme, but to hear that come out, and there's been a lot of different incidents, shall we say, after that incident between Burnley and Manchester City, with the banner flown over the stadium, and a lot of comments made on social media. Ollie, how depressing is a word I constantly use on it, because I think you can tell by the look on my face how depressed I am to see morons like this appear on radio stations and claim that there's someone who they're not, and claim that they believe in this and the other. How depressing is it to hear that these morons come out and say that sort of thing?
It does hurt. It does hurt, because those few individuals who do not represent society as a whole. But I want to say it's almost, there's too many of them. It's 1, 2, 3, and then all of a sudden you open your social media and there's another one, and then you kind of realize that you're living in a world where you've got a lot of keyboard warrior and people who likes to be controversies. Controversies, and it's just like, I'm arguing with people on social media for fun at the minute, just over simple things. Why is all my life matters? Of course, it's all life matters. Why not? But at the minute, the one who is in danger is the black ones. That's it. That's what we said.
Exactly. Yeah.
We didn't say that we don't believe in white life matters. We saying that at the minute, the one who's oppressed is the black one. That's it.
Yeah. So
we want help. Help us as a whole, whether you're black, white, Asian. Help black people to get out of this system, because it's painful, hurtful.
Yeah, it's incredible to see the amount of people. There are many, you just said there, Ollie, there are many who are simply jumping on the bandwagon and simply don't know what they're talking about. They're just saying it to be controversial and saying it to wind people up. Then there are the more concerning ones, the ones who would genuinely believe the bile that they come out with on social media or behind a keyboard. And then there are the ones that simply the point just goes straight over the head, which is quite remarkable. Like the bloke who decided that he was going to fly this banner over Manchester City, which we're not going to talk about because it gives them oxygen. But yeah, it beggars belief, absolutely beggars belief. And I do feel sorry for South Shields and for Graham Fenton as well, that they've been dragged into this situation when, they clearly think something else and there's nothing to do with this bloke. It's frightening society, isn't it? Absolutely frightening. Let's move on from such depressing talk as morons like that. Any other news coming out of South Shields, Mark? Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I was that angry.
Yeah, so obviously they've got this legal bill that's being brought up for the legal attempt to get the FA to overturn their decision to null and void the season for steps 3 to 7. South Shields has been landed with a legal bill and tribunal costs of over £200,000, I believe. I did put a report in the Sunday Sun and this week's non-league paper as well, where I spoke to Jeff Thompson. Now, Jeff couldn't discuss the ins and outs of that, what's going on, for various reasons, confidentiality being the key one, but he was keen to praise the club supporters for starting a crowdfunder to try and support the club and try and at least reimburse some of the costs that are involved. So, yeah, not an easy week for South Shields, but they will plough on for planning for next season, and for their case, you would hope that they will have as good a season as they were having last year.
Yeah, especially after all come tumbling down around March time, and things just seem to be going from bad to worse for them at the minute. Not a great time for South Shields. But
we shouldn't forget that their last game that they played before lockdown, they beat the team that were in second, FC United of Manchester, beat them 5-3. The lead at the top of the table was double points. You know, they were going to win the title. There's just no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So it's you can sense the frustration. You understand it, and it's it'll just redouble their efforts to do it again next year.
Sure, we hope so. Couple more stories to come out of around the local leagues. Signings, different places. Spennymoor have added 5th and 6th signing. I think there's a big signing too at Seam Red Star as well, isn't there?
We've got a lot of new signings. I can also.
Yeah, I know. Just list them out. It's easier, mate. I think.
You can also. I've got a one that's literally just been done as well.
Oh, go on. Breaking news.
Anyway, we'll start.
We haven't got a yellow banner to go along the bottom.
Thankfully, and and I'm not David Craig, thankfully. So yes, firstly, Spennymoor Jason Kennedy has signed. A great signing, vastly experienced Hartlepool United midfielder, played at Carlisle United. Obviously was at Spenny last season. Did well during his loan spell and will be a great signing. More experience for that side. Jamie Spencer as well has come in. A very good signing again. Shows that Jason Ainsley isn't scared to look outside of the region to bring in players. I think Jamie will do very well there next season. Someone that I know from looking on social media, the fans are very excited about. So yeah, someone mentioned on social media when I tweeted about the signing that they wouldn't mind a bit of a cheeky bet on the Moors to win that league next season, and I don't think we'll be far short. So
I think they're not done. They're not quite done. That's 6 signings. I think I heard that they were going to make probably another 1 or 2.
Yeah,
at least.
I think there are very few weaknesses in that squad now. They've got, Jason can rotate if he needs to, if they need to challenge on a number of fronts. It's such a strong squad. So, credit to him. Because, and I said this last week, he keeps, He keeps revitalising that squad every now and then and kind of regenerating it into something else. So, you mentioned Seam Red Star, signed a bit of a Northern League legend. Andrew Johnson has signed from Bishop Auckland. Consistent goal scorer during his time at Bishop Auckland is probably the understatement of the century.
I was reading notes on this. 240 goals in 281 appearances.
Yeah, very, very, very good. And someone who, if they give him service, he will get the goals they need next season. I've got no doubt about that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes with Andrew next season. He's very confident. I had a good chat with him for the Sunderland Echo. He's confident that he will do a job for Collingwood next season and certainly brings good calibre. The signing I was just about to say that has literally just gone through. Damon Mullen, former Blythe Spartans midfielder, has signed for Hebburn Town. Just signed for it. So I've known about that for a few days, but it's literally just been completed. So another good sign for him.
You would have told us about it anyway and broke the news on Football Matters, mate, even if it hadn't. Yeah.
I would have only broke it with the club's permission when the deal is done. So yes, it has literally, he's at the ground and has just signed. So,
Mark, have you my next move is?
Your next move, it's just gone through.
In Blythe, Darren.
I was just about to say that. Well done. Thank you. Yes. So, a good signing for Hebburn. Another good signing for Hebburn. Kevin Bolam building a very good squad there for next season.
Yes, indeed. And very quickly, mate, very finally, signings off the pitch as well. Gateshead, vice chair, and a new chairman in at Wickham as well.
Yeah, Bernard McWilliams, who is the chairman of the Gateshead Soul Supporters Club, has been announced as Gateshead's new vice chairman. So he'll work alongside Neil Pinkerton. And Bernard was influential last summer in forming the Soul Group and influential in helping put the consortium together to buy the club, the supporter-led consortium. So a key one there. Bernard will do a good job. He's a Gateshead fan. He's a long-term fan. At his appointment will be key. I'm sure, absolutely sure, that his passion will be put to good use. Gateshead are going through a big few weeks here. We shouldn't forget that. Planning for the playoffs, which should go ahead now. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out. Wickham, new chairman there. Paul Taylor stepped down back end of last year. His permanent replacement has been founded as Ben Riley, who is a local businessman, well known in the area, well known within the club as well, because his company sponsored the Glebe Sports Ground last year. So, I've got no doubt that he'll have the club's interest at heart. They are a good club, a progressive club, trying to build on the progression that they've made over the last few years. He's already stressed that he wants to work alongside Mark Convery at the manager, and Steve Bowie, the managerial team there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one works, and hopefully, things will progress. There's been another chairman appointed, Billingham Town. Paul Beddoes stepped down earlier in the week. They have appointed John Tuff as our new interim chairman. So another appointment down at Billy Town. So he's only on an interim basis. So
I was just waiting for you to draw breath there. There was a lot of news coming out of the North East this week. You can take a rest now, mate. Take a glass of water or something, and come back in a few minutes. Actually, no, first and foremost, before we do sign out, just tell us about the quiz this week, and then we'll let you head off.
Yeah, so the quiz this week will be a Premier League goals quiz. So it'll be based on the higher and lower that we did last year. So
That's my cup of tea. That's my cup of tea. Okay. I'll log in.
Maybe we should encourage Darren and Olly to take part and see how they get on against them.
No, I look forward to seeing that play out on the show next Monday. That's for definite. Especially if one of their goals are included in the Premier League. So that's the quiz back this Thursday. We will have a Football Matters Extra as well, which we are going to record in the next couple of minutes, where the lads will be debating England's Euro 2021 team. So I hope that's not coming as a surprise to any one of you, but that's what we're going to be doing in a couple of minutes' time anyway. I'm sure there's a few bits of debate to be had over a few positions, but you can watch that later this week on social media. Keep up to date on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter and Instagram as well, which only leaves me to say thank you to our guests this week, Andy Campbell and Jim Wilson. Thanks to you three, as ever, Olly, Darren and Mark. We'll see you in a couple of minutes' time. And as ever, thank you for watching. To all of you at home, we'll see you in 7 days' time. From all of us here at Football Matters, take care. Bye for now.